It is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro.
DEI is about building more inclusive processes. To me, the idea of no DEI, it just doesn't make sense to me.
What's up, everybody? This is Mike. Today we're going to look at this video, Compliments of Dr. Phil, where he had a panel of guests come on his show, two in particular, which happened to be black men, where they absolutely schooled this HR manager or HR hiring director. I don't really know. This video was actually enlightening for me as well, because I've never heard DEI broken down in such a simplistic way. So I actually took a lot away from this video, and I actually have thought back a little bit after watching it a couple of times. In fact, I can see right now I might have also been a DEI affirmative action hire. Anyway, I'm not going to continue to waste your time. We're going to jump right into this video. Roll the clip.
Welcome.
Thank you.
When you say diversity, what do you mean?
For me personally, and I think for the industry in corporate, we are looking at it broadly. We're looking at diversity as bringing in different backgrounds, whether that is industry experience, race, gender, sexual orientation.
Well, now, wait a minute. When you're doing diversity training, you're not talking about industry experience. You're talking about racial diversity. You're talking about gender.
We're talking about all of the above. I think good diversity programs are really about broadening perspectives within an organization. And I've certainly worked for organizations where, we only want people from a specific background. And that can be very limiting and impact what your organization looks like in terms of race and gender.
Okay, well, you just said what it looks like.
And maybe this is where I don't understand this, but for me, this sounds like another version of affirmative action. Because when I was in this law firm, they really prided themselves on having a certain amount of Hispanics, a certain amount of blacks, a certain amount of people of the LGBTQ community. Before it was called that, it was just gay. This firm, Perkins Coie, was very big on this stuff, and I probably saw the beginning of the implementation of DEI probably around 2014, 2015. They used to give us questionnaires once a year, and all they would talk about is, do we feel valued in the company? Do we feel like we're a part of the company? Do we feel included in kind of the daily ongoings in the company and stuff like that?
That's what one of the big criticisms is that it's what it looks like, that there's diversity of bodies, that you've got a certain number of one from a certain race, another race, another race. Has nothing to do with diversity of ideology, has nothing to do with diversity of background. It has to do with quotas.
I have never worked in an organization where we've had quotas.
Does DEI work?
Yes. I have seen tremendous success in
Are you aware there are 100 studies that suggest that it doesn't work?
There are also studies show that it does work. If you look at the Harvard
But
Business
those are
Review,
done.
Deloitte.
Well, let's look at the Harvard Business Review, because they actually did a study. The study found that over 5 years, 800 plus businesses consistently lost diversity in their managers, that no improvement in the proportions of white women, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, and the participants feel external power trying to control their behavior.
Yes, this is a great point. Participants feel external power trying to control behavior. In my opinion, I think in my particular instance, in my law firm, Perkins Coie, they were looking for this outcome if they just had this whole melting pot of people that would come together in their institution, and somehow it was going to make the work environment a little bit better. I will tell you something. I had 3 Hattie McDaniels in my company. I had a Red Fox, more or less. I had one biracial gay guy, another gay guy who was my immediate boss at some point. We had a couple of Hispanics. We had another Hispanic guy, but he was more of the I think in the liberals' mind, more of the prototypical Hispanic. So it was a lot of si se puede. I mean, we used to recruit the creme de la creme of attorneys. So you're not going to have this frat boy or girl come into a law firm out the gate making over $200,000 per year at 25, 26 years old, and then going to couple this person with somebody that came out of East Texas, South Central LA.
I can only lean on my experience. So I've worked for 13 different companies throughout the course of my career. And what I have seen is that employee engagement increases, employees care about diversity programs, candidates care. I'm coming from a recruiting background. Candidates ask about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is important to them. There have been studies on Glassdoor that have shown that a good percentage of people will not accept an offer with a company that doesn't have intentional DE&I programs and initiatives.
That is crazy. That's hard to believe. Most people that I've worked with in my 25-year career, I've never heard one person go to a job and say, hey, you know what? I'm looking for a whole lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have also never gone to a job interview and asked about how many whites, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and gays do you have in this institution? Because this is something I need to sleep on and think about.
Talk to me, Pastor.
Okay, so
Preach on, brother.
yeah. Well, a few things. If DEI works anywhere, it has to work everywhere. Let me tell you where DEI does not work: the NBA and the NFL. Where are the Asian, Latino, and Hispanic basketball and football players? Where are the black guys in the National Hockey League? Those businesses are performance-based. If you really want to go deep to the heart of this, and when I say that DEI treats the symptom but not the sickness, America is in a new civil war right now. The first civil war was the North versus the South. The new civil war is a war of ideologies concerning justice. And it's really going to come down to who gets to define what justice is, whether that's biblical justice or social justice. When moral law stands alone and DEI initiatives are based upon that, somebody gets to pretend that they are God.
I want to bring another important voice to this conversation, Eric Smith. He's an associate professor of rhetoric at York College of Pennsylvania and a public policy research scholar. He's joining us virtually. Eric says DEI should be called EMC, Equality, Merit, and Colorblindness. Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I just need to say that I would call DEI, contemporary DEI anyway, critical social justice.
You say that we're told demanding merit hurts minorities. Why is that being taught? Why is that being preached?
Well, it's being preached because people think that minorities don't have the same opportunities to acquire the same education as white people. Also, in oversimplification, what we should do then is not get rid of merit. We should help those students acquire those resources.
Okay, now, you got criticized for saying that you thought black students should be taught standard English. Talk about that.
I was pushing back on the idea, the almost universal idea, that teaching standard English to black kids was a form of racism because you're asking them to speak white.
That's so true. I remember I used to go back and visit my mother from time to time, and when I would run across a friend, he would say, "Hey, Mike, why are you talking white?" And I'm like, "Dude, bro, what are you talking about? I'm just speaking English." I never thought about it, actually, the way they frame that type of question. But in fact, I'm working with multi-millionaires dealing with clients who are worth tens, if not tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And I need to communicate with these people. I can't say, what's up? What's up? You know, what it be like? You know, what you need today? You know, what can I do for you? I have to speak proper English. So the fact that this man has to come on Dr. Phil and say speaking proper English is considered to be white and racist tells you what type of times we're living in. And that's the problem with the liberal DEI narrative, because when I was in this law firm, if you have three Hattie McDaniels,
if you don't care what folks says about this family, I does. I has told you and told you.
And everybody's sucking up to these Hattie McDaniels, and they're telling them when we do potlucks how good their barbecue and fried chicken is, when in fact they don't even eat this stuff to begin with. And then you have a normal kind of straight-laced guy like myself who is considered to be black but talking white. They don't know how to deal with you.
I, as a pragmatist, say, well, you're giving them tools so that they can go out into the world and be happy, successful, and fulfilled. They're not replacing it however they talk. They're adding standard English to however they talk. But that was not received well.
Why not?
Well, because I was seen as somebody with false consciousness. I was seen as somebody who was a traitor to his race. I was seen as all kinds of things you call people who aren't acting the way they're supposed to be acting. And I need to say this, Dr. Phil. Contemporary DEI cannot work without what's called prescriptive racism. And what is that? It's when you have a script, basically, a list of things that a person of a particular race is supposed to abide by. And if he doesn't, he is considered inauthentic or defective. You get this from Black people as well as white people. Contemporary DEI cannot stand without prescriptive racism. It is prescriptive racism.
You fucking mothers.
No, man, no, that's wrong. Watch me, man. Just be cool. Jive, tricky motherfucker!
Now, this is a great point right here, so I jumped ahead of this man, and damn it, I wish I didn't, but I have to also piggyback on a little bit more of, as he was talking, what I was thinking about. When this law firm did the whole DEI thing, or the quota, or the affirmative action, let me tell you what happened. The Latino, the Red Fox, the two Hattie McDaniels, they were fired because these people were not performing at a high level. They were paying these people really, really, really good money. You have an environment which is strictly results driven, and these people wound up eventually getting fired because it was not about the merit. It was about checking the boxes. So either if you're going to go with the DEI narrative, you better get the best of the best.
What is the definition of equity?
It's a great question, and I think we confuse equity with equality. And equality means that everybody is treated the same. And equity means that we need to look at, for example, there's a great visual of a short person and a tall person, and they're both looking over a fence, and they have the same block to stand on. And the tall person, of course, can see over the fence, but the short person has not been lifted up enough to see over the fence.
Somehow I think that's that narrative that somehow black people need a bone thrown their way. If black people only had a chance in America, maybe they could make it and dig themselves out of poverty. It doesn't work like that. This is inherently racist because you're basically saying you are above black people. So in fact, you have an unconscious bias because you believe you can control an outcome based on your policies. Implementation of policies that have nothing to do with us having a certain set of circumstances which start from within. White liberal wants to fix our problems, which in fact make it worse.
Talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're talking about the fact that some demographics come to the table and have to overcome racism, unconscious bias, misogyny. And so how do we help level the playing field?
You can't create a quality of outcome. What gives a DEI program the right to come in and try and alter the nature of things to create a quality of outcome? That's been tried. That didn't work. That was called Marxism.
What I would say is that, I've been in the recruiting space for 25 years. And the way we have done recruiting traditionally relies heavily on things like networks, referral programs, and So who are we going to refer? We're going to refer the people that we know who are in our neighborhoods or who play golf with the CEO. And so you start to have a population in your organization that looks very much the same. And so what I'm advocating for is more intentional programs that reach a broader audience.
All the more reason for merit. If you apply to or stick to meritocracy, it doesn't matter whether somebody is playing golf with the CEO or not. It's about matching those values, those skills that are necessary for the job. Your argument proves that we do need meritocracy.
At the end of the day, you know what this is about? It's about control. It's about power. It's about
a power
control.
grab.
I have a few situations, a few things I want to talk about because for me, I didn't know what I was looking at the time, but because these two black men explained to me in very good detail what DEI is, I'm gonna tell you what it looks like and how it plays out in real time in a workplace. When my law firm, Perkins Coie, used to have happy hours on Fridays from time to time, maybe once a month, maybe every 3 months, every quarter, the firm would get together and you got to get a real good look of what the workforce looks like. You got to see it on the higher level from the attorney staff all the way to the lower level to the copy staff, record staff. These situations you would see actually, in my opinion, drove a wedge between the staff. What do you mean by that, Mike? Driving the wedge means when you have a DEI workforce, you start to see people that come from very impoverished backgrounds, people that are not necessarily college educated all the time. And what happens is those people tend to gravitate towards one another. If you have a group of people that attended Yale, Columbia, USC, NYU, people talk about their alma maters, people talk about their teams. When you don't have people that are on the same level, they're not able to identify. And what happens is, I noticed firsthand, it starts to create an environment where people are actually self-segregating. So people were starting to self-segregate during these outings, which were done and designed to help us all get along, to help us integrate with one another. But in fact, we were familiar with one another, but when you actually looked at it, if you were a fly on the wall, what you noticed was, if you were noticing, people would self-segregate. College-educated attorneys would be on one side of the room. Lower, less educated black people, Hispanics, would be on the other side of the room. These two people spoke from time to time when you're getting a bowl of chips, when you're getting some celery, some chicken wings, having a glass of wine, getting a beer. Yes, there were some small interactions, but if we're talking about really in-depth, meaningful conversations, it never went well. You always had people isolating themselves in a corner, in fact, actually making fun of the attorney staff. Black people were making fun of the attorney staff because they could not identify and assimilate in this small little setting. So what happened was people would segregate, go to the corner and just talk shit about the attorneys. That's what the reality was in my law firm, Perkins Coie. People were self-segregating because they could not identify with Ivy League college-educated attorneys. You don't know the law, you don't know the stock market, the subject you talk about are very low on the, you have a group of people talking about Steve Harvey, and you have another group of people talking about the stock market. Look at the discrepancy here. Steve Harvey, stock market. So during this video, when the guy said, this is why exactly you need a meritocracy, I have to 100%, 100,000% actually agree with this guy. Because I'm telling you, I've seen it firsthand. You cannot be a PhD and attorney that attended Yale, Columbia, MIT, and then you're talking to somebody who went to high school and watches Steve Harvey. You know what I mean? There's two opposite ends of the spectrum, two extreme ends of the spectrum. Anyway, this is Mike for Flew the Coop. Until the next video, peace.
We need variations, okay? We need a variety of different. Do you have anything that's a little bit more ghetto?
Like, what do you mean more ghetto?